The mountain air had a kind of silence I couldn't buy anywhere else. It was sharp, clean, and carried the faint smell of pine sap and old wood. That's why I'd booked the cabin, my cabin, rented legally, signed and sealed. It was supposed to be 3 full days of peace, no city noise, no buzzing phones, no interruptions. Just me, the trees, and a porch where I could sip my coffee and listen to the river running in the distance. But peace has a way of shattering faster than glass when someone like her shows up. I was barely 2 hours into settling in, unpacking a bag and starting a fire in the stone fireplace, when I heard the crunch of tires on gravel. At first I thought it was another lost hiker, or maybe the delivery guy bringing up extra firewood. I wasn't alarmed until I saw her. She stepped out of a shiny white SUV that still had dealer tags. Platinum blonde bob, oversized sunglasses, and a blazer way too stiff for the mountains. She held a clipboard against her chest like it was a royal decree, and the expression on her face? Like she had just walked onto property she already owned. "You there," she called, snapping her fingers at me as if I were some kind of staff. "Yes, you. Are you the caretaker?" "Caretaker?" My hand paused on the fire poker I was holding. "No," I said slowly. "I'm the renter. This is my place for the weekend." Her lips pursed. She yanked down her sunglasses to glare at me properly. "That's impossible. This cabin has been reserved for my HOA event. 100 people. I sent the notice weeks ago," I blinked. "Notice to who?" "Because the contract is signed in my name. Paid in full," she sniffed, tilting her chin up. "To everyone in the neighborhood association. Clearly there's been a mix-up. I'll allow you to finish whatever camping thing you're doing, but you'll need to vacate by tonight. We have caterers coming." It took everything in me not to laugh right in her face. "I think you're mistaken. This isn't an HOA facility. It's a private rental. I have the lease documents right inside. That should have ended it. Any normal person would have apologized, checked their records, maybe even left embarrassed. But Karen was no normal person. She marched right up onto the porch, clicking her heels against the wood like she owned it, and shoved the clipboard practically into my chest. Pages and pages of printed schedules with titles like Annual HOA Retreat and Guest List, 100 attendees. She even had highlighted parking instructions and a section labeled Wine Pairing Notes. "I've been organizing this for months," she snapped, "and this cabin is the centerpiece. It's tradition. You can't just waltz in and take over because you clicked Book Now online." Now I did laugh, a sharp burst that echoed off the trees. "You seriously think your HOA tradition overrides a signed contract?" Her face flushed, but she doubled down. "Don't get smart. I am the president of the HOA. When I say this cabin is ours, it's ours. The entire community relies on me to coordinate these events, and I will not let some outsider ruin it." I leaned against the doorframe, folding my arms. "Lady, I don't care if you're president of the United States. I booked this place. I'm not leaving." That should have shut her down. Instead, she smiled, a slow, smug curve of her lips. "We'll see about that." Before I could reply, she whipped out her phone, dialed a number, and started barking orders. "Yes, it's me. Everything's set. Bring the tables, the decorations, and tell the DJ to be ready by 6. We'll have plenty of space. Ignore any confusion. It's handled." Then she hung up and looked at me like she'd just dropped a royal decree. "They'll be here shortly. You'd better move your things before cars start blocking you in." For a moment, I thought maybe I was on some hidden camera prank show. Who in their right mind invites 100 people to a cabin they don't even own? But the determination in her eyes told me she wasn't joking. "Are you insane?" I demanded. She flinched at the word, then straightened her blazer. "I prefer organized. Someone has to maintain standards around here. If you're smart, you'll cooperate instead of embarrassing yourself." I couldn't help but chuckle, but it wasn't humor. It was disbelief. "Listen carefully. You're trespassing. If you and your army of wine drinkers show up here, that's exactly what you'll all be doing. And I'll have no problem calling the sheriff," she gasped, clutching her clipboard tighter. "The sheriff? Over an HOA event? Do you realize how ridiculous you sound?" "No," I shot back, stepping closer. "Do you realize how ridiculous you sound claiming someone else's cabin as your party palace?" Her jaw worked, but no words came out. For a split second, I thought I'd finally cracked the armor. But then she hissed, "You'll regret this. You don't know who you're dealing with." With that, she spun on her heel, marched back to her SUV, and peeled out of the gravel driveway, spitting dust into the air. I watched her taillights vanish through the trees, shaking my head in disbelief. I thought maybe, just maybe, that would be the end of it. that she'd stomp back to her little suburban kingdom and sulk. But deep down, I had a sinking feeling. People like Karen didn't back down. They escalated, and as the wind rustled the trees overhead, I couldn't shake the thought. This wasn't over. The sun had barely started dipping when the first car appeared at the edge of the driveway. I was sitting on the porch with a cup of coffee, trying to convince myself that Karen had just been bluffing. But then headlights flashed between the trees, and the sound of gravel crunching made my chest tighten. A silver sedan pulled up, trunk stuffed with folding chairs, and a couple hopped out carrying coolers like they were arriving at a tailgate party. Hey, I called down, standing up. Can I help you? They looked at each other, then back at me. This is the place, right? The man asked. Karen said the HOA retreats here. We brought snacks. My jaw almost dropped. She told you to come here? Yeah, the woman said cheerfully, already scanning the porch like she was choosing a spot to put her cooler. She said it's tradition. Big gathering. Everyone's invited. I laughed, but it wasn't funny anymore. I think you've been misled. This is my cabin. I rented it for the weekend. There is no HOA retreat here. The couple froze, the man awkwardly scratching the back of his neck. Are you sure? Karen was pretty insistent. Trust me, I said firmly. I'm absolutely sure. You're welcome to enjoy your snacks somewhere else, but this cabin's off limits. They hesitated, then finally turned back to their car. As they drove away, I thought maybe that was it. Just a couple of stragglers who'd realize the mistake and leave. But then another SUV appeared. Then two more. Then a pickup hauling long folding tables and portable heaters. Within half an hour, the quiet mountain road looked like the parking lot of a county fair. Engines idled. Doors slammed. Voices rose. Dozens of people spilled out with trays of food, boxes of wine bottles, and even a sound system someone was wheeling on a dolly. And in the middle of it all, like a conductor of chaos, came Karen. She stepped out of her white SUV like she was arriving at a gala. Same blazer, same clipboard, sunglasses now perched on her head like a crown. She clapped her hands to get everyone's attention. Wonderful! You're all right on time, she declared. Now, set the buffet up along the porch, DJ over there by the trees, and keep the driveway clear for deliveries. We're going to make this the best HOA retreat yet. I stood frozen on the porch, coffee mug still in my hand, watching in stunned silence as these people obeyed her like sheep. Some of them waved politely at me, assuming I was part of the welcoming committee. Finally, I slammed the mug down on the railing and shouted, Hey, stop, every single one of you is trespassing. This is my cabin. I rented it. This is not your event. The noise died down a little as people turned to look at me. A few frowned. A few exchanged nervous glances. But Karen didn't even blink. She marched right up to the steps, pointing at me with her clipboard like it was a sword. Don't listen to him, she said loudly, her voice dripping with authority. He's just the caretaker. A little confused, poor thing. He doesn't understand that this property is under the HOA's purview for special events. Now carry on. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some people shrugged and went back to unloading. A few looked at me uncertain. Caretaker? I barked. Are you kidding me? I am not your caretaker. I rented this cabin fair and square. You're all trespassing. One man carrying a stack of plates frowned at Karen. Wait, is that true? Karen's smile didn't falter. Of course not. Don't be ridiculous. Do I look like the kind of woman who would make a mistake with an event of this scale? Everything's under control. He's just overwhelmed. I could feel my blood pressure rising, my fists tightening. She was lying so smoothly it almost sounded believable, but I wasn't about to let her steamroll me. Without another word, I strode down the porch steps, marched to the heavy steel gate at the entrance of the property, and swung it shut with a loud metallic clang. Then I pulled out the padlock from my pocket, the one I had brought just in case, and snapped it shut. The echo of the lock closing rang louder than any argument. The crowd froze. Engines idled. Someone dropped a tray of cutlery, the clatter breaking the silence. Karen spun around, her face draining of color, then flushing deep red. What are you doing? She shrieked. What I should have done the second you showed up, I said coldly. Protecting what I paid for. This cabin is mine for the weekend, and none of you are welcome. Gasps rippled through the group. A few people muttered, unsure if they should keep unloading or leave. One elderly man adjusted his glasses and asked quietly, Karen, is this true? Karen's voice rose an octave. Of course not. He's bluffing. He's trying to bully us. Don't fall for it. I stormed back up to the porch, grabbed the folder with my signed rental documents, and held them high for everyone to see.
Bluffing?
You want proof? Here it is. My name, my payment, my contract. This cabin doesn't belong to the HOA. It's private property and I rented it. Anyone who steps past that gate is trespassing. And I'll have the sheriff up here so fast your wine won't even be uncorked. The crowd murmured louder now, people glancing at each other nervously. Some started whispering, clearly uncomfortable. A woman carrying a basket of breadsticks set it down on the hood of her car, looking at Karen like she wanted answers. Karen, though, wasn't about to back down. She stormed up to me, standing just a foot away, her eyes blazing. "How dare you humiliate me in front of my community? Do you realize the work I put into organizing this? Do you realize the prestige of this event?" "Prestige?" I snapped. "You mean your ego trip? You lied to these people. You dragged them up here with promises of some retreat you had no right to host. And now you're mad because I won't let you steal my weekend? That's on you, not me." Her mouth opened, but for once no words came out. She looked around at the faces in the crowd, faces that were no longer beaming with trust but shifting uneasily, questioning her. "Is that true?" one man asked. "Karen, did you even have permission for this?" Another voice chimed in. "You told us this was all cleared." "I left work early for this." "Yeah," someone else muttered. "And I spent $100 on food. If this isn't legit, you're paying me back." Karen's face was crimson now, her confidence crumbling as her so-called loyal followers turned on her. She stammered, pointing her clipboard weakly at me. He's lying. He must be lying." But I didn't have to say another word. The signed documents in my hand were proof enough, and the locked gate behind me was the final nail in the coffin. One by one, people began to back away. Trays of food went back into trunks. Tables were folded up. The DJ quietly wheeled his equipment back toward his van. The once eager crowd had turned into a grumbling mob, muttering curses not at me but at her. "You dragged us up here for nothing. You embarrassed us." Unbelievable. Karen stood frozen, her perfect little kingdom collapsing in front of her. She tried to bark a few more orders, but no one listened. A man in a flannel shirt actually laughed bitterly and said, "Looks like the Queen's lost her crown." Her eyes snapped to me, burning with hatred, but she couldn't touch me. Not with everyone watching. Not with her lie exposed. Finally, with a furious scream, she hurled her clipboard to the ground, stomped back to her SUV, and slammed the door. The tires squealed as she tore out of the driveway, her grand empire of lawn chairs and snack trays scattering like a broken parade. The last of the cars followed slowly, muttering as they drove away, leaving behind nothing but tire tracks in the dirt and a silence that felt heavier than the mountain air itself. I stood there on the porch, heart pounding, watching them vanish one by one. Then finally I sank back into the rocking chair, picked up my coffee, which had gone cold, and let out a long, slow breath. For the first time that day, the cabin was quiet again, peaceful, mine, and somewhere out there, Karen was fuming, her reputation shredded, her empire of control in tatters. I couldn't have asked for a better ending. The silence after they all left was thick, like the woods themselves were holding their breath. The echo of engines had finally faded down the mountain road, but I sat there on the porch, gripping the cold coffee mug, listening to the creak of the rocking chair and the steady rush of the river. My heart was still pounding from the showdown, adrenaline refusing to settle. I thought it was over. I thought Karen would slink back to whatever suburban throne she came from, lick her wounds and never dare step foot on the property again. But people like her, they don't just give up. They can't. Their pride won't allow it, and sure enough, 10 minutes later I heard it. The sound of an engine, louder, angrier. Not the cautious arrival of guests. This was fury on 4 wheels. I leaned forward, setting my mug down on the porch rail as the white SUV came barreling back up the driveway, kicking up rocks and dust like it was charging into battle. She didn't even park properly this time. She stopped right in front of the locked gate, slammed it in park, and got out with a slam that rattled the frame. Her face was blotched red, her hair a little disheveled, and the clipboard she had thrown earlier was now replaced with a folder clutched under her arm. She stomped toward me, her heels stabbing the gravel like daggers. "This isn't over," she screeched, pointing at me with trembling fury. "Do you have any idea what you've done? You humiliated me in front of my entire community. Do you think that's acceptable?" I stayed seated in the rocking chair, calm as stone. Acceptable? Lady, you brought 100 people to a cabin you don't own. That's not just unacceptable, that's insane. Her eyes narrowed into slits. I will ruin you, she hissed. I'll have the HOA blacklist you. You'll never set foot in this town again without people knowing you as the thief who stole our event. I couldn't help but laugh. Blacklist me? From what? Renting cabins? I don't even live here. And if you think I'm scared of your little suburban gossip circle, you're even more delusional than I thought. That hit her like a slap. She stuttered, then tried to regain her footing. I'll sue you. For emotional damages, for harassment, I cut her off. For what? For stopping you from trespassing. Good luck with that. I stood then, walking slowly down the steps until I was just a few feet from her, my voice low and steady. Here's what's really going to happen. You're going to leave. You're going to tell your precious HOA that you screwed up, that you lied, and that you dragged them into your mess. And if you ever try to pull this again, I will not hesitate to call the sheriff and have you arrested for trespassing. Do I make myself clear? For the first time all day I saw it, the crack in her armor. Her lips trembled, her eyes darted away, and her shoulders slumped just slightly. But even then she couldn't surrender completely. You'll regret this, she whispered, though the fire in her voice was gone. Maybe, I said, shrugging, but right now it looks like you're the one who's regretting things. I turned my back on her then, an insult sharper than anything I could have said. I walked up the porch, sat back in the rocking chair, and picked up my coffee again. Behind me I could hear her breathing quick and shallow, like a bull pawing at the ground but too weak to charge. Then finally, the sound of her retreat, her heels clicking angrily against the gravel as she stormed back to her SUV. The door slammed, the engine roared, and with another spray of dust, she was gone. This time I knew it was final. I sat there for a long time after, just listening to the quiet. Slowly, the adrenaline drained away, leaving only a heavy, satisfied calm. The cabin was mine again. The mountains were mine again. No clipboard, no screaming voice, no fake retreat to spoil the air. As night fell, I built a fire in the stone hearth, poured myself a drink, and settled into the armchair with a book I'd been meaning to read for months. The flames crackled. Shadows danced on the wooden walls, and for the first time all day I let myself relax completely. But the best part wasn't the peace. The best part was imagining her. I pictured Karen back in her neighborhood facing the crowd of neighbors she had lied to. I pictured the whispers, the pointed fingers, the laughter behind her back. I pictured her reputation crumbling like a sandcastle under the tide. The woman who strutted around like a queen had been exposed as a fraud in front of her entire kingdom, and there was no recovering from that. Maybe she'd try to spin it. Maybe she'd invent some story about a double booking, about unforeseen circumstances. But deep down, every single one of those people knew the truth. She had lied. She had been humiliated. She had failed, and the best part? I didn't have to lift a finger to spread the story. The people she dragged into her scheme would do that for me. The fire popped, a log splitting in the heat, and I raised my glass to the flames. To peace, to solitude, to the sweet, rare satisfaction of watching arrogance collapse under its own weight. The mountains outside were quiet again, the stars just beginning to scatter across the black sky. And as I sat there, warm and content, I realized something. I hadn't just shut a gate that day, I had shut her out. And it was glorious.